I swear, I'm not just making fit content. Hey everyone, Seb again here. Thank you so much for joining me in another video. We've got my buddy Nick's silver GD3 here. We'll be doing some mods and some maintenance on this guy. So let me show you around. Let's get started. So this is Nick's GD. He picked this up from out of state. It's a really clean Southern car. He's done a couple mods to it. It is his daily driver, so it's nothing crazy. He's got these, I want to say Enki 15-inch wheels that he picked up from Mr. Gridlife himself, Adam Jabay. I sold him this Apexi intake. Sounds really nice. He's got the smoked clear tails on it. We've done an equal fabrication test pipe on it since some dickhead decided to steal a cat off of it while he was at work. And then it's got the carbon Rogue 7 scoop. So let me show you what else we'll be doing to this today. So on Nick's car, we're going to be doing some brakes. For whatever reason, aftermarket rotors have been really crappy lately, and they don't last. So we're going to be trying out some Centric Cryos. Got these from Parts Daddy. I'll put his link or info down here somewhere. These are the part numbers for the rotors. These are some really high quality cryo rotors that should last a lot longer. Nick does a lot of highway driving from what I know, so he does tend to warp rotors a little quickly, or at least more quickly than someone doing some more stop and go traffic city driving. For pads, I really like running the power stops. They're really well priced. These are part numbers for those. I think we'll be using the Z26s on his car, and then I'll be putting the 23s on mine for the winter, since I currently am still on track pads and they are way too aggressive when there's not a whole lot of grip, and on all season or snow tires. Also going to be doing valve lash and tune-up. I really like running the IK22s. They run, the L15s run a lot better on them. That's the part number for those guys. And then while we're at it, we're doing valve cover gaskets. That's the part number for that. And platinum gaskets, part number here for those. Well, we're doing all this. We're also going to be changing out the cabin filter, doing oil change with some STP filter and fluids, all synthetic of course, and a couple other little things that I'll show you. So the first thing we got to do is get this whole torn apart, take the cover off, intake plenum underneath it, intake off. I'll be doing a separate video that will walk you through all of this, on a stock car, so you can see how to take off a stock airbox and do the valve lash adjustment and all that. That will be its own separate DIY video. For this one, I'm just going to time lapse it real quick. We'll get all this off, get it ready for service, and talk to you after. Alright, so I've gotten manifold out of the way and everything loosened up. A couple quick tips, even though this will be in the video I make dedicated to this job, is the 10mm bolts that hold the coil packs on down here. Those little guys usually like to break, so I like getting those off when the engine's still warm. That way you've got a little bit better of a chance to keep them from snapping. And then I'm actually going to be working on making a bracket that'll hold the coils down even if those are broken, so that'll be coming up. I always like to blow out any kind of debris that might be on the valve cover. I'm going to cover this up over here so that nothing gets into the intake manifold, and I also just undo the mounting bolts for the plenum and shove it out of the way. That way you don't have to be dealing with the coolant lines that are going to the throttle body, or worry about having a vacuum leak from the throttle body gasket to the plenum. And as long as you just kind of move it out of the way, you've got plenty of room to work here with the valve cover. So, all right, we got the valve cover off of this thing. It's really nice, real clean under here. Got the old plugs up here. They're not terrible. I don't know if you'll be able to see them, but we'll change those out. For the IK22s, this thing will run a lot better. Now, you are supposed to wait until this is room temperature. They say anything that's 100 degrees or below is all right. And if we take a temp reading here, this is right there-ish. I'm gonna wait, do brakes while this cools off a little bit longer. We got this guy closed off. I'll put the valve cover back on just so nothing gets in it. And then I always also like to use a little magnetic dish. Get all your hardware somewhere nice and safe. You're not losing anything. So we'll put this guy back in, get the wheels off, start doing some brake stuff. Alright, so Nick has been on these pretty cool little 4-spoke wheels. Again, I think they're Enkis, but I'm going to ask him later exactly what these are. They're 15 by 6.5 plus 45, I think. Made in Japan right here. Yeah, right here. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but it's 15 by 6.5, 45. And he's been on these Maxxis RC1s, I believe they are. Maxxis RC1. These are a race tire, and Nick is a little insane because he's been driving these through the fall. So right now, before those get winter tires put on, which he's getting from me, we're going to be putting these on that he just picked up. It's a set of Koze's. I believe these are 6x7 plus 38. We just put some all seasons on them for the time being, so these should handle all the weather we've been seeing a little bit better than the race tires that are on those. And we might work out a deal where I end up buying these, because I'd love to try these out on my fit for track stuff next year. So let's get these brakes going so we can put those on and see how the car looks. So let's try this old school snap trick. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful new Cryo rotors on there. We ended up going with the Z23 pads. Got got some brakes going. Had to drill out the rotor screws. You might be able to see all the shavings on the ground. These crusty Midwest cars don't like to come apart very easily. Other side's getting there. Got the rotor on, got it all disassembled. And then something else I like to do too is use magnetic trays to put all the hardware so you don't lose stuff. You can put these on your lift arm, jack stand, quick jacks, whatever you're using to get the car up in the air. You know, lug nuts or brake hardware, whatever you're using, you're not going to lose it. It's all right there, easily accessible. And then I usually have one per corner. There's that one there, like another one there holding a bunch of stuff. But that way you don't lose all your hardware or kick it, you know, if you're working with jack stands on the ground or whatever. But let's finish that up and do some other stuff. All right, there we go. Got this side done. Now let's put the car up and get the oil change knocked out real quick. Put you right there. All right, now that we got the oil drained out of it, we're gonna take this guy back off, do the valve lash, finish that up, and get into the fun stuff. All right, got the valve lash done. The exhaust side was actually really tight and the intake was really loose. So I usually do a little bit tighter on the intake. I'm not sure if the camera's gonna pick that up, the etching. But I usually use a tighter one on the intake and a little looser one on the exhaust, just because that's how they end up working themselves out. So let's put everything back together and then get to the fun stuff. Now before I put these new plugs in, it's always a good idea to check that the gaps are what they're supposed to be with a feeler tool here. These are a smaller gap than what the fit is supposed to take from factory, but I'm at least going to check them all, make sure that they all match to make sure that one of them wasn't damaged or anything like that. All right, got everything back together. I replaced the PCV hose here because the old one had this big crack in it. So threw a new one on there. And then I wanted to show you something I've been working on with the 3D printer. I've got this 3D printed funnel, and I made it so that it actually fits underneath the cowl on the second gen since it's so close. And it looks like I'm gonna have to do some touch up because it's touching up on here. But my other engine, I guess it doesn't have an intake manifold. Goes right in. Pour your oil in there, no leak. So I'm gonna have to tweak it so it fits with the upper plenum. So I'll do that. Print another, get back to it tomorrow morning. Let's see how it goes.
The next day.
Nick came by in his beautiful EJ207 swapped Legacy GT. I'll put some clips in right here. And he dropped off these KYB replacement struts, you can see right there, with H&R lowering springs. Jay had these on his Silver Fit, and he did track them, but he also daily drives the car in the city, and they ride really nice. It's a sporty ride without being too harsh or too low. You can still get around everywhere. I actually recommend this to a lot of people when they're doing just a fun daily driver setup. But they'll be going on Nick's car, lowering a little bit. Should look good. Let's get them on. Alright, so I got all the stock stuff out. You see the OEM spring here. Next to that, we have the lowering spring. You see the height difference is a good bit. This does have a lot more springs next to each other, where these are very evenly spaced. So the drop is not going to be insane, but you'll see it'll give the car a really nice look. We've got the shocks here, which you'll see like the spring right back up. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. We got the stuff I took off over this way. Now you do need to order new bushings when you're doing the rears. If you see this little slit right here, it doesn't want to go past the threads. So if you try to pull on it, it gets caught. And even if you try to cut a slit like I did there, they still don't always want to come out. So I had another set in my stash of parts, so I'm going to use that, put all this back together, and then we'll do the fronts. Sorry for the noise, doing some landscaping, wood chipping stuff outside, but went ahead and got the rear all installed. Made sure that the rubber pieces are indexed properly with the spring, and then I'll do a final torque down of everything once the weight of the car is on the car itself. Same with the ones up here. Make sure everything's good, and I'll tighten that up once the car's back on the ground. All right, so now to do the fronts, usually you have to take the cowl out. But if you have a tool small enough to get in here, sometimes you're able to do that without taking all of the cowling off. Usually when this cowling comes off, there's little plastic clips that hold it onto the metal, the little sheet metal underneath. Those really like to break, and their special order dealership doesn't generally keep those in stock. So I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to see if I can take all this out without having to take out the cowl, and hopefully that works out and we don't break any clips. Alright, successfully got these off without having to take the cowl off, so that's a win. I'll show you what I used right here. I really like this gear wrench tool. It's that part number right there. It's 3680D. It's this ratcheting mechanism with a pass-through socket. These are really handy because you can put the Allen through it and take that out. I loosen it with a extended 17, and then I get it off the rest of the way with this guy. Usually works out really well. So now we're gonna do all this stuff in here. Take the sensors off, make sure you don't break up, overextend and break the ABS sensors. I've done that more times than I care to admit, and it usually ends up being a costly mistake, so make sure you don't forget about that. Same with the brake lines, don't overextend those or you'll have leakage. So we'll get all this apart, get the new stuff on, get this going. Alright, went ahead and got that swapped out. Now what you want to do when you're doing this is you want to make sure that you're not hyperextending your axle joint back here, because this will have the tendency of falling forward and then the cup will fall out on the CV joint, and then it's a huge pain to try to get it back in. So what I do is, instead of letting it fall out, is I'll push the strut back towards the inside of the car and let this lay sideways. So it'll kind of rest back instead of resting forward. So that has always saved me a lot of headache when we're doing this kind of stuff. So try that out next time. See if you can keep yourself from messing up the axle. I've seen a lot of people online having issues when doing suspension like this, and either spending hours trying to get the stuff back in or having to go to the parts store and get a new axle. So quick little tip on how to prevent that from happening. Now the other side, when I do it, I notice that, you know, this is used suspension, but the boot was torn. So since it's already apart, I'm going to go ahead and replace the boot with the other OEM one, get this back together, put that side all together, and then we'll lower the car and see how it looks. All right, so I got everything torn apart here. This is the new stuff, and this is why you replace these bearings. This is the one that came off the car. These are the ones that came with the suspension. Not amazing. I think these are reused OEM. And then this is the new one. Doesn't rattle, doesn't make that noise. It's a lot smoother operation. So this was the broken strut that is going in the bin, and this is the new one that'll go on there. So we'll go ahead and pop it in here like this. This guy gets spun on. This whole assembly gets put on in here. Like that. We take the nut, there we go, that's the right spot there. We take the nut, zap this guy on with this one here. Make sure it's nice and tight. With this guy right here, put the bushing in, make sure this guy in there gets locked in place, and we're ready to go. So this, at the bottom of the strut, will have a couple of tabs where the boot sits into. That's it. It's ready to go in. I got this thing all wrapped up off camera. Got suspension all torqued up to spec. Got the wheels on, tire pressure topped off, did a brake fluid flush, finished up oil change stuff, loaded the spare wheels in the trunk, and this thing's looking pretty good. I'll do some shots outside, but the wheel gap with the H&R springs is still pretty good. You know, it definitely closes it up. About a 2-finger gap in there. Not too bad, definitely something that can still be used every day. We'll go over here, take a look at the back. About a finger gap there, but it gives it a nice little stance. So let's take it outside, do some glam shots, take it for test drive. We got this thing all wrapped up. It's looking really good. Front fitment is perfect. The rears are still not rolled because this thing's got super clean quarters. They're spotless. So you could use a little bit of spacer in the rear. It's a little sunk, but for stock quarters, it's great. Ride heights settling in a little bit. The front still needs to settle, just a tiny bit, but looks good. Like I said, it's not too much of a drop with the H&Rs, and they still ride really nicely. I did do a test drive, but my GoPro decided not to record, so I guess we don't have footage of that. It started to snow, and it's been on and off and crazy today, so don't want to chance it, and I'm not going to do another one. But yeah, this thing is ready to get picked up, and we'll get on to the next one, which will be doing a full walk around video of this. It's been doing some weird clunking stuff in the front. I gotta figure out if it's the diff, but while I'm at it, I'll do a video showcasing everything I've done to this car, what I think is money well spent, what isn't money well spent. So yeah, thank you for joining, and look forward to seeing you on the next one.